Bonjour mes enfants, c'est votre uncle. Yes, it's Uncle Dan the Vinyl Man, back with something that's actually kind of topical, although it's also very old-fashioned. I received in the mail today, the day it was released, a big box set. This is just the cover, and I'll show you the rest of it, of Playing for the Man at the Door, which is field recordings by Mack McCormick from 1958 to 1971, mainly out of the Texas, I believe all out of the Texas area. He recorded a bunch of blues and other African-American artists. Some of them played things other than blues, songster tradition, and things of that nature, but we can think of them largely as blues artists. And those recordings were known. These were basically field recordings. He was using a portable tape recorder. And these were known. He played them for some people. People were well aware of them, but they weren't released fully until really today by the Smithsonian in a collection here. This is an 8-disc set, and it also includes a massive, well, pretty massive, basically a huge 128-page book, really a coffee table book to accompany it, and it is filled with great, just amazing photos, tons of text about the musicians. This actually Leadbelly isn't in here, but this photograph of Leadbelly. Blind Lemon Jefferson, who is also not in here, but talks about the history of Texas blues. I haven't reviewed it all yet, of course. I just got it. There's a photos of one of my favorites, the great Hop Wilson on lap steel there, and just a ton of stuff. Has some familiar names, Lightnin Hopkins and Mance Lipscomb in particular, as well as Hop Wilson, who does have some stuff out, and Cedell Davis, who's also represented somewhat on record. I think I have an old, I think I have either an LP or a CD. I'd have to go digging around, but I've got one or the other of them that I've had for quite a while. But a ton of stuff, just tons of great photos. I mean, here's just, you can just turn to a random page and get great photos here. And then comments, brief comments on all the songs. I got another photo of, it's got posters, photos, copies of posters and things like that. There's for Clifton Chenier. There is some Zydeco in here, sort of Zydeco related stuff. Here's another of Hop Wilson. And actually I do have this Jimmy Womack I haven't listened to yet, but a white artist. Some white artists really did perform in folk traditions that were deeply related to the African-American tradition. Uncle Dan spent a couple of years working on the PhD in English, and I was actually focusing on folklore, and I was focusing on the blues. This was a long time ago, back in '87 to '89. And I did some work on white blues traditions back then. But this is just a spectacular book. Look at Joel Hopkins' face there. I mean, that is a face. That is a face for the ages, man. That is a face for the ages. It's a big, big thing. It's the albums are here, and let's see. I managed to bury my this. It has a nice fabric thing to pull them out. The albums are in each in a separate sleeve with a separate, very nice inner sleeve for each sleeve, and it has a nice polymer liner. So very, very nicely done. Smithsonian did a real work here. And then on the back it has, he has lists the cuts on each side. This, I think, is an amazing piece of work, an amazing effort by Mack McCormick, and I think profoundly important. And I don't usually talk about things like that, but I think this is profoundly important. The blues and jazz are the great American music. You would not have American music without blues and jazz. And that will include country music, because the country musicians, great country musicians, learned from blues musicians and jazz musicians. You know, the father of country music, Jimmy Rogers, performed a bunch of blues. I mean, that's his Blue Yodels, and T for Texas was, that's a blues song. And that profoundly influenced the country tradition. Hank Williams learned from and performed with, early on performed with an African-American artist, I'm blanking on the name. And so did Bill Monroe, the great bluegrass player. And when you listen to, say, to Bill Monroe, who is, in his playing, the Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys are just slamming on the 2 and the 4 on the rhythm. That is an African-American feature. So all of those were influenced. That blues influenced, country music influenced bluegrass. There is a little bit of traditional Appalachian or Appalachian music, however you want to pronounce it, that does descend solely from a European tradition, but it's very minor and did not have a great influence on American music overall. So the blues and jazz, which intertwined, although I think that they had kind of a separate birth. I don't think that jazz, they both came out of the same area. They both came out of the same milieu, the same set of conditions, but jazz does not rest on blues, although it has blues elements. I think of it as a twin genesis. You had twins born, which is really amazing, given the conditions under which African Americans were living at that time, that they developed in the conditions of profound poverty, of profound repression of their liberties. Post-slavery, yes, but still profound repression of their liberties through the Jim Crow era. And they developed two incredibly vital, incredibly important music traditions that influenced as well American literature and also art, the visual arts. There were visual artists who were responding to jazz and blues, and so they, the influences are just profound. I can't say that they influenced mathematics and physics, but otherwise, the blues and jazz, these quintessentially African-American music, so African-American art forms, affected the world in amazing ways. You wouldn't have rock and roll without blues, because rock and roll is blues and country put together. You just wouldn't have it without that. Blues and jazz, and especially jazz, influenced classical music, and not just in people like Aaron Copland, well-known influences there, but influences on other classical musicians, classical composers through since jazz became known, it began influencing classical composers. So this work, which focuses on this collection of field recordings, where McCormick was capturing the true folk music, some of it in of course in club locations, and I'm going to play some Hop Wilson for you. But you can hear this music here. I only listened to one of the 8 albums, 2 sides. And a number of those are in context and club contexts and that sort of thing. And that's where this music was performed at the time. But yeah, this is important music. These are beautifully done. The recordings were surprisingly good. Did he have big ribbon mics and acoustically treated studios? No, but the recordings still sound very good. And it's clear that the Smithsonian put significant effort into making this, making these sound good. They wanted to present these in the best way possible to highlight the works of these artists. Many of them not well known, and none of them became wealthy during their lifetimes. Even like, Lightnin Hopkins, who was the most successful of them all, was never wealthy. He did okay, but he preferred performing performing in venues that were comfortable to him, performing for friends, doing things like that. He wasn't chasing fame. I mean, these are, again, this is really close to my heart. I really love this. I think this is wonderful. I do want to mention one more thing about the book, which is that they've tried to source they tried to identify the artists of the photographs, and they have an ethical. The Smithsonian is trying to do what they can to, and I'm trying to find it here now. Find people to credit and for their works. So this ethical returns work by the Smithsonian Institution. I always worry on some of these things about cultural appropriation, and it's inevitably there. I mean, in some ways, McCormick was a voyeur, right? He was a white man who entered into this world and was observing it from the outside. With that said, had he not done so, we'd have lost a lot of this. So I've talked enough. Now I'm going to drop the needle, playing this on my FFYX T1804 turntable with an Audio-Technica AT OC9 X or XEN, I believe. It's an elliptical nude. It's a moving coil cartridge. Elliptical nude into Cambridge Audio Duo phono preamp, and then my Sansui AU5500. So here I'll drop this. It may be a little bit, maybe back on the one prior, but see if I get this on the Hop Wilson 3 o'clock blues. Yeah, okay, picked up a little bit of it drifted back a bit there, but. Oh yeah, Chip. This is recorded in a club. Yeah. Oh, yeah, nice. Really slippery, greasy lap steel work. Yeah. Yeah. That's the stuff. That's the stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning, can't even close my eyes. Uncle Dan's been there. I was there last night, pretty much. Except it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, yeah. Man, this is the real thing. Oh, yeah.
Well, I can't find my baby.
Yeah, I can't find my baby.
Well, I can't be satisfied.
I can't be satisfied. Yeah. 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 Now that is the real thing, folks. That is the real thing. That is it. This is stuff. I think if you're serious about music, I think you want to look into this. This is great stuff. Profound. I think just very important. and very wonderful stuff. Great artistry in these. It is not the cleaned up, pristine artistry that you would associate with, say, Steely Dan. This doesn't sound like your audiophile Asia, but it is a great set of albums. One of the real centerpieces in my collection, because I am very happy to have this. You go out and get you some, okay? Uncle Dan, the Vinyl Man, wishing you as always, mes enfants. Au revoir, et aussi. À bientôt.